The U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine has met with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Kyiv. Keith Kellogg has said the focus of the visit will be to listen to Ukraine's security concerns. His visit comes 2 days after representatives from the U.S. and Russia met in Riyadh for talks on ending the war in Ukraine. Well, Michael Bociurkiw is a global affairs analyst and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. He joins us now from Odesa. Good to have you with us, sir. So, first of all, what upset Trump's relationship with Zelenskyy? I mean, it obviously didn't start. We've seen tensions before this verbal exchange heated up, right?
Yeah, this goes back to Trump 1.0, as far back as when Trump announced his candidacy. You may recall the quid pro quo scandal when Trump tried to extort Mr. Zelenskyy, saying, you give us dirt on the Bidens, especially Hunter Biden, and then I'll give you weapons. So well, Trump eventually did give those weapons, but there were some verbal exchanges back then, and then even more recently, earlier on in this current administration. And the thing about Trump is he doesn't forget people who have either hurt him or ripped him off or insulted him. So that's what I think what is playing out right now. And in addition, as opposed to Mr. Putin, who he admires and sees as a strong leader, I think he sees Mr. Zelenskyy as weak, as sort of effeminate, and that type of character he doesn't respect. I think, just quickly, I think Mr. Zelenskyy did do a bit of a mistake by trying to verbally fire back at Mr. Trump. He would have been better off just zipping his mouth and letting this go and hoping that Trump's short attention span shifts him to some other region of the world.
Will these tensions translate into Ukraine having to give maybe even further concessions than the US or Trump has already indicated to Russia once they do get to that negotiating table?
Yeah, I think as your correspondent Kimberly Halkett indicated, is that what's more important here is not what's being said, but the shuttle diplomacy, the talks with the Russians via the Saudis. But, sad to say, sitting here in Ukraine, it does look more and more that Ukraine will have to give up territory. How much, we're not quite sure, but we can safely assume that Crimea is gone. Big chunks of Luhansk and Donetsk, which the Russians mostly occupy. A big question, however, will be how much of Zaporizhia and Kherson Oblast they hand over, which they partially occupy. And then finally, my concern right now is with no solid red lines being enforced by the Americans, the Russians will do as they've been doing in the past 2 nights, pounding Ukrainian cities and trying to get more territory to kind of exploit this void.
What are the sort of perhaps military options available to the Ukrainians as they watch what I think it's fair to say has been a fairly erratic US foreign policy between Trump 2.0. Previously, we had Biden, things swung the other way. And before that, we had Trump with things swinging the other way. Do they have the option to say, you know what, can we just hold on and hold out for the next 4 years in the hopes that a different administration comes and shifts things in a different direction?
Well, of course, that would be a best case scenario, but there are a few problems with that. And one is that there's a lot of fatigue here in Ukraine. I was out this morning talking to people, and they're asking me, is it going to end in a few weeks or a month or whatever? People, especially here in Odesa, which is the symbol of irrepressible resilience, are really just trying to hold on. But, I have to say, with the barrage of drones that came down on Odesa last night, near me is a district with 250,000 people, a lot of them without electricity and sub-zero temperatures. It's very tough for people to hold on. As for military options, Ukraine doesn't have many, sadly. Of course, it has incredible drone capability, striking inside Russia. But we know that the Russians have a lot more to throw. They have a seemingly endless supply of soldiers. They have the support of Iran, North Korea, and on the sidelines, China. So it's quite a bit stacked up against Ukraine.
All right. Thank you so much for your thoughts and analysis on this one.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.